Welcome back to Leeds Lately. Now, this is going to be a classic Leeds Lately video. We've got the tactics board back out and we're going back to tactics. I love doing these tactics videos. I think I'm going to start doing them more often now, so you might get one every single week on a Thursday talking about either a game that's just happened or something that is like a general principle or concept I want to go through that would improve the way that we play, or just explaining something that we do that you might want to know more about. So before we get into it, hit that button down below. That would really help me out. But like I say, today's video is about the key to Leeds United success. Now, something that we've really struggled with in recent weeks and months is tempo. Now, Jer mentioned this. If you don't know Jer, that's Leeds United The View on YouTube. Go check him out. He's on 20,000 subscribers now. He's doing fantastically well and fully deserved. But Jer mentioned that Leeds' biggest issue at the moment is tempo. Now, this can be when we start games slow. And when we talk about tempo, we talk about how fast we move the ball, whether we have the urgency to go forward, whether we are psychologically on it, ready to move, light on our toes, ready to receive the ball, ready to turn, ready to try and be explosive and go forwards. And this can be slow starts to games. It can be tailing off in games, which is something that we've experienced both this season. Good example of starting slow. Southampton, we started really slowly and we were never able to get into the game because of that, and they battered us. Then you go to the other end of the scale, and that's when we've started really well but tailed off, and that is the Rotherham game from last week. And it is something that we need to improve on. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why it might have happened to start with, and the way that we can potentially help this situation. So here comes the tactics board. Now, we're going to talk actually specifically about the Rotherham game here, because this is something that we struggled to break down. Now, they played a mid-block in the first half. So if you don't know what a mid-block is, they actually played quite a high line, even though they were playing defensively. But they basically sat on this halfway line and didn't really give us the space to play through them. Now, if you actually look here, I've done this on purpose, the distance between their defence and midfield. And the reason for that is because that's what they were doing. They were trying to limit space for our creative players, like a Jorginho Rutter, like a Pirro, Dan James, Somerville. They were trying to limit space for our attacking options. And what we didn't do very well was get through the lines. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is how important Pascal Struijk is. Now, you know I love Pascal Struijk. I did a video about him about him the other week, talking about how good he's been this season. But if you imagine a football team like an orchestra, Pascal Struijk is the conductor, right? This season, he's been trusted to be the one who receives the ball from Meslier, plays out from the back, and is the one to dictate the tempo. So when you take him out the team, obviously he's had his hernia surgery, but you took him out the team, and what we did is we put Cooper in there. Now, Cooper, we know his limitations. He's slow, and he's a little bit slow to move the ball forward and to take those opportunities to go forward with it. That's not his fault. As Jer keeps saying, it's on us whether we expect more from him than that. But that is the player he is all we can expect. So instead, we look to Pascal Struijk, who is our starting left centre-back, and he is the one that Farke has been giving the captaincy to, the role of the dictator from the back, the tempo conductor, basically. So this Pascal Struijk, and this is why he's got the ball here. Now, Pascal Struijk, if he sees an opportunity where these players push up a little bit on him, or push up a little bit to mark these players, Pascal Struijk will just charge straight into that midfield with the ball. Now, what this does is it moves these players round. So this player might have to come out, this player might have to close him down, which obviously gives a little bit more room for this player. That means that Pascal can then pass him the ball, and these players are all out of position, have to get back. You have a player like this come over. Do you see how the space starts to be created, don't you? Because of Pascal stepping through the lines. And this is why it's important that we practice, well, not practice, because that sounds patronizing, but it's important that we as a team are able to break down a press or are able to break down an opposition team. So for me, it's important, so important, that somebody like Pascal Struijk is the player that dictates this tempo from the back, because he could do that by carrying the ball out when a player comes towards him through that gap, or he can do that by passing, and he likes to pass the ball forward. It doesn't necessarily mean that he has to pass the ball forward every single time that there's an opportunity to do so. It just means that he has to pass the ball forward when it's right. When he knows the option's right. Sometimes you'll see Joe Rodon will drop down there and you'll get Pascal pass the ball back to him. Then Pascal will drop back and he'll give him an option again. Joe Rodon obviously also has the ability and the license to try and get the ball forward as well. I'm just going to move this microphone a little bit. There we go. That's perfect. So Pascal, though, he can break those lines with a pass or with dribbling the ball out from the back. You don't really see Liam Cooper do that anywhere near as much as what Pascal does. So it's important for me that Pascal is in the team every week so that he can get the ball out from the back, so that you can play these balls out wide, and then your Ampadu comes back in to receive it, and you get those abilities to play through. The other thing I want to talk about quickly is how important the defenders are and the midfielders are in creating what is called bounce passes. Now, this is something that Pep Guardiola absolutely loves in the way that he breaks down an opposition team. So the way it works is that somebody like Man City are so dominant, Leeds in the Championship are so dominant, that they need a way of creating space for themselves. So a lot of the time, you'll see Man City with the ball at the back, and you'll see them play a ball into midfield. He'll play it to Ampadu, and the ball will just bounce straight back to Struijk again. And you go, what's the point in that pass? Why has he done that? But in the time that the ball has gone here and passed back again, this player has been slightly sucked over towards him because he thinks he's just received the ball. He might turn, so he has to. There's no way of him going, oh, I anticipate he's just going to go back again. If he doesn't go over to him, that means that Ampadu can turn and go forward and find a ball into Rutte, Pirro, whoever. But if he finds the ball has come back to him here, he's still got to come over here, and now that has created a gap here where you might have a Kamara who then can receive the ball, and then if he comes over here, it can be bounced back to Joe Rodon. I'm trying to remember our players' names. It can be bounced back to Joe Rodon, who now can drag the ball up the pitch, and you can go like this up here, and it's created that space. Then Joe Rodon passes it here into Dan James. This player's sucked over, this player's sucked over. The ball can go back to Joe Rodon or back out wide to Archie Gray, for example. That might open a little bit of a gap for Archie Gray to go up the line with the ball. You see how just these little simple passes where you're watching a football game and you're thinking, why is he doing that? What's the point of that? Why doesn't he just keep the ball for another 5 seconds? It's because it creates space, because it moves around the opposition. And when an opposition are playing in tight, deep positions like this, when they're trying not to let you have that space, you have to keep the ball moving and keep that tempo up. That's why it's so important that we talk about tempo. It's so important that you keep the tempo going. You play the ball into midfield, you bounce it back to the defender, you play it into midfield, you bounce it back to the defender, and eventually it might open up space for somebody to go forward, receive that ball, and then somebody like Archie Gray might be in down the line then to cross the ball into the box for a Pirro to put it in the back of the net. You see how it would work, don't you? So yeah, that's the importance of the defenders, because it's them that have the responsibility, and Pascal Struijk is probably the one that is best at it because he's the best at progressing the ball and the best at passing in that defensive line. But Joe Rodon also has that responsibility. But the key for me to be able to break these down is knowing when to go. So when you do this and he moves, it's knowing, right, we're explosive now, bang, bang, and we're gone. It's being able to keep up that tempo. So instead of just slowly strolling round, and let's just rub some of these off. Instead of just slowly, God, I drew a lot of arrows here. Instead of slowly strolling round at the back with it like this, let's bring Archie back down as well, and Cooper going across. And it's no fault of Cooper's; he's just not got the skill set to do it. He'll go to Rodon, and Rodon will go to Archie Gray. Nothing will be showing here, so they'll go back again. and then back again. And you can start to see how it would slow things right down. The players start to think, oh my God, we're never going to get through these here. How are we going to break them down? Whereas if the ball can be played nice and sharply into Ampadu, bang, this player comes over, he's sucked over, Rodon goes back to this midfielder, Kamara, he's sucked over there. He either can turn, and he might go through that gap there with the ball, or he can bounce it back to Archie and open up that space. That could be a space through the middle as well, doesn't just have to be down the wings. But the point is that Leeds need to move the ball quicker, bounce it around, wait for those opportunities, and then explode through those gaps. And that's when you've got these players who can all be released into those attacking situations. You actually saw it with our first goal against Rotherham. The ball came into Glenn Kamara here. He passed it into... we went quickly, passed it into Jorginho Rutter. Somerville made a run round the corners to Somerville. He was in with a chance to score, and he just curled it right into that bottom corner. And that is when we are at our best, when we go and we explode forward. We've got so much pace in attack when we explode forward after passing the ball around at the back. That is when Leeds United are best, and that, I think, is the key to Leeds' success. It's all about tempo and keeping that ball moving. That has been another tactical analysis video for you. I hope you enjoyed it. If you agree, disagree, or want to talk about any of the general principles in this video, get down in the comments and I'll be happy to chat with you about them. Thanks for watching Leeds Lately, and I'll see you in the next one.